Hey guys, and welcome to another deep dive Evercade completion review. And what's a deep dive Evercade completion review, you may ask? Which where I need to complete an Evercade game from start to finish. Doesn't matter how many load states I use, and it doesn't matter how many save states, just as long as I can complete the game before I do this review. And what little gem are we reviewing today? Well, today we're doing a red cart. We're doing Cannon Fodder from Codemasters Collection number 1, which is a red cart number 19. Let's get into it. Well, march in, soldier. It's time to lock and load for one of the quirkiest, most addictive war games ever made. Cannon Fodder may look cute with its tiny troops and catchy music, but don't let that pixel charm fool you. This is tactical chaos at its finest. Originally developed by Sensible Software and published by Codemasters, Cannon Fodder drops you into a fast-paced mission full of explosives, dark humor, and surprisingly emotional punch. You'll laugh, you'll strategize, and if you're not careful, you'll lose half your squad in a swamp before lunch. Now on the Evercade, this is a cult classic that is ready for a whole new tour of duty. And I'll be diving into the gameplay, the soundtrack, and why this oddball war sim still holds up in 2025. So grab your grenades and click that fire button, and remember the golden rule of Cannon Fodder. War has never been so much fun. As always, we'll be looking at the story, the sound, and the gameplay, and a little later on we'll be looking at my stats on how long it took me to complete Cannon Fodder. But before we do all that, let's look at some interesting facts about Cannon Fodder. So Cannon Fodder was originally released in 1993. It first came out on the Amiga and the MS-DOS, which are both PC platforms, and after its initial success, it was later ported to several other systems, including the Atari ST, the Sega Mega Drive, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, the Game Boy Color, and the PlayStation as part of various compilations. The game became quite popular thanks to its uniquely blend of strategy and action combined with its darkly humorous tone. So let's talk about these British devs who made chaos an art form. So if Monty Python made video games, they'll probably look a little bit like the output of Sensible Software. They were the British devs who made chaos an art form in Cannon Fodder. Formed in the mid-1980s by John Hare and Chris Yates, this quirky little British dev studio punched way above its weight class, blending tight gameplay design with a cheeky sense of humour, distinctive pixel art, and soundtracks that slapped harder than they had any right to. Here are some of their most iconic hits and a few oddball moments that prove Sensible was anything but, well, you guessed it, sensible. So they had Sensible Soccer, which was probably their most famous, and this game redefined soccer video games with fast-paced top-down arcade-style gameplay, simple controls, and an addictive pick-up-and-play feel that made it hit worldwide. They also had Sensible World of Soccer, which was the sequel and the evolution of Sensible Soccer. They had Megalomania, which was a unique real-time strategy game where you control tribes battling for dominance across different islands, mixing resource management, strategy, and quirky humor. They had a little lesser known title, but typically of Sensible style, featuring fast-paced action and cartoonish fun. And they also had Sensible Golf, which was a quirky and fun golf game with simple controls, colorful graphics, and a playful vibe. Sensible Software was all about combining addictive gameplay with charming visuals and a sense of humor that made their titles stand out from the crowd. They were known as the studio with personality. Some of the Sensible's genius ideas wasn't just in the gameplay, it was just in the whole vibe of the actual game.
It's lore, it's the vibe, and no, that's it, it's the vibe.
So the menus, they were normally full of jokes. The credits listed the devs' favourite drinks. The soundtracks were oddly emotional. Shout out to Cannon Fodder's intro song, War Has Never Been So Much Fun. And yes, they made a football game where you could manage the team while drinking tea in your underpants. Probably. But sadly, in the late 90s, Sensible Software couldn't keep up with the growing costs of 3D game development, and they were eventually bought out by Codemasters, and many of their unfinished projects were unfortunately shelved. But their spirit still lives on in indie games and in memes today, and the fact that we can still call our mates Jools when they get blown up in Cannon Fodder is just absolutely amazing. But one of the biggest things in the Cannon Fodder history was the Great Poppy Panic of 1993 when the tiny soldiers caused a national meltdown. Yeah, that's right, Cannon Fodder didn't just fire digital bullets, it fired up the British press like a faulty kettle on Remembrance Day. The story is simple. When the game launched in 1993, its title screen and box art featured a red remembrance poppy, the same flower worn in the UK to honour fallen soldiers. Seems respectful, right? Not according to absolutely anyone with a tabloid column, and within hours the British press exploded with headlines like, "This is a disgrace to our veterans," "How dare they mix war and fun," and "War is not a game." The controversy spiraled and veterans groups were furious. Politicians grumbled and even casual shoppers started boycotting game stores, as if Cannon Fodder was a direct threat to national dignity. Meanwhile, Sensible Software was standing there, mugs of tea in hand, blinking into the chaos and gently trying to explain. Guys, we're not making fun of war. This game is literally anti-war. Look at the gravestones, look at the sorrow, look at Jools. He just got mowed down in the jungle. But no one at all was having it. Yes, there was some blood, tiny red pixel puffs when your squad get wiped out, but it was hardly a gore fest. No decapitations, no exploding spleens, just enough digital splatter to remind you that war, even in a cartoony game, comes at a cost. And yet still the poppy pushed all the wrong buttons, even though the game opened with even a message that literally said, "This game is not endorsed by the Royal British Legion." The outrage machine had already left the station. In the end, under a lot of heavy pressure, Sensible Software pulled the poppy from future releases, and the iconic flower was quietly retired, and Cannon Fodder went on to become a cult classic. Well, minus the botanical controversy. The irony to all this was the same year that Mortal Kombat was under fire for uppercutting people into meat chunks, and Cannon Fodder, a game with tiny feet, ironic humour, and just a pinch of pixel blood, somehow wound up being the bigger threat to British society. So when you're playing Cannon Fodder today, remember this is the war game with a conscience that was nearly cancelled forever, all over the poppy. God save these pixels and God save those poppies. Let's take a look at the story. So at first glance, Cannon Fodder looks like a simple, cheeky little action game. You control a squad of adorable, squeaky-footed pixel soldiers, and you march them through jungles, deserts, snowy peaks, and enemy bases. You click to move, click to shoot, and try not to die horribly. But beneath all this cartoon chaos is a message that's anything but goofy. So what's the plot of Cannon Fodder? So there's no traditional cutscene heavy story here, folks. Cannon Fodder tells its tale through the gameplay itself and through one brilliantly dark touch. Every soldier in the game has a name. So at the very start of the game, you start with only a few recruits. That's Jools, Jops, Stoo, and company. Yep, you guessed it, they're named after the developers. And when they die, they get a tiny gravestone on the hillside. And by the end of the game, that once peaceful, quiet hilltop is now crowded with hundreds of little digital tombstones. This is just a quiet reminder of how many lives you burn through claiming your victory. There's no evil mastermind to defeat, no plot twist, no grand reward, just mission after mission, battle after battle, and a growing graveyard of the fallen. The message hits pretty hard. War is not fun, even when it's pretended to be. That's right, Cannon Fodder might look like a Saturday morning cartoon with guns, but it's biting satire at its core. That intro song, "War Has Never Been So Much Fun," it's so cheerful and it hurts because it's so just ironic. The blood spatter and gravestone to remind you that these aren't faceless soldiers, they're individuals. And you, the player, become desensitized until you pause and you look at all the names that you've lost on that hillside. It's a game that laughs at war games while secretly pointing the finger at them. Let's take a look at the sound. The sound of Cannon Fodder with its tiny screams hold a pretty big impact. The title music for Cannon Fodder is legendary and it's sung by the lead developer John Hare himself. The intro theme is an upbeat, bouncy, dangerously catchy tune that sticks in your head like shrapnel. And here's the thing, the song is intentionally ironic. It's full of cheeky lines like, "Go to your brother, kill him with your gun." It sounds like a celebration, but it's biting satire, mocking the glorification of war in both media and in games. And you hear it and you laugh. And then you play the game and realize, oh God, it's not a joke after all. So once you're in the missions, the music becomes more atmospheric and very low key, sometimes completely absent at all. That quiet ambient tension gives you the space to absorb what's happening, especially when one of your guys dies and you're left in silence. Later levels do include light military style background tracks, but always in a way that avoids glamorizing the violence. And what I loved about Cannon Fodder are its simple yet very, very amazing sound effects. And talking of that cartoonish feel, even the sound effects doesn't go for that realism hit. It goes for maximum impact with minimal tools. Some of these sound effects include the footsteps of your squad, which is unmistakably squeaky sneaker sound as your squad moves. It's just weirdly cute and instantly recognizable. The gunfire, simple arcade-style bursts, no realism, just satisfied pings and pops as bullets fly past. Explosions, meaty little booms that feel powerful, especially when a rocket goes wrong and wipes out your own squad. And the screams of your squad and the enemy when they get hit. This is where it actually hits you hard. Those high-pitched death cries of your tiny soldiers are comically exaggerated and they will stick with you. Every adds to the guilt. And that sound effect when the gravestones start appearing on your quiet little hill, that little plink sound when a soldier dies and his gravestone appears back at the camp. It's a small effect, but over time it becomes haunting, like a bell tolling just for you. So Cannon Fodder's sound design is deceptively clever. On the surface, it's funny, light, and cartoonish, but every audio choice is working towards the game's message. War might be a game, but the consequences will stick. It's one of the few games where the sounds will make you laugh and then make you feel pretty bad about laughing. Let's take a look at the gameplay. In Cannon Fodder, you take command of a small squad of soldiers, usually between 1 and 5 brave little pixel guys. Your mission, wipe out all enemy forces, and that's about it. No politics, no story twists, just pure chaotic top-down tactical warfare. But here's the twist. These little guys aren't superheroes, they're squishy. One bullet, boom, they're gone. So while it looks like an arcade shoot 'em up, you've just got to think fast, move smart, and avoid turning your whole team into tomorrow's Tombstones. So, how does it play? Well, the controls are simple. You click to move, you hold to shoot, and you tap a button to lob a grenade or rocket. You navigate jungles, snowfields, rivers, bunkers, bridges, and the occasional base crawling with pixel-sized nightmares. Each level is like its own little puzzle. Who do I shoot first? Where are the mines hidden throughout the level? Can I get through without blowing up my whole squad again? It's fast, it's frantic, and half the fun is the comedy of errors that take place. Like when you accidentally walk into your own grenade blast and wipe out half your team named after your best friends. And whilst Cannon Fodder starts pretty easy, which will have you marching forward and shooting baddies, the game ramps up quite quickly. Enemies start to hide behind trees, in watchtowers, and even in tanks. Landmines start becoming everywhere, and one wrong step and boom, your elite squad is just soup.
Yeah! All right! Right. Oh.
You'll often split your team up to flank enemies only to realize, oh no, I left Jools behind. And let's not forget the rocket ricocheted fails where your own missiles bounces off a wall and comes right back at you like a cartoon anvil. And in Cannon Fodder, every death is permanent. When a little soldier dies, he's replaced by a fresh-faced recruit, and you'll see that dead soldier's name appear on the hillside grave. Lose too many troops, and suddenly your hillside looks like a war memorial. It's hilarious at first, then a little bit weird, and then by the end of the game, a little bit sad. And then you lose Stoo, and you yell, "No! Not you, Stoo," at your screen. And you look at his little graveside and you know that you've played him through many, many levels and he's a captain now. He started as a private. You're my boy, Stoo. You're my boy. It's those little moments that really get to you. Cannon Fodder is a rare blend of arcade fun and tactical thinking. You're clicking and laughing 1 minute and sweating through a last man standing situation with one guy named Kev, 2 grenades and an enemy base full of rocket turrets. There's no respawning, no medkits, no mercy, just you, your squad, and a whole lot of mayhem. This is Cannon Fodder. Now, I paid $125.73 for this cart, but that's because this is a legacy cart. They don't make it anymore, and I can't just get it through Amazon. So here in Australia, I had to siphon through all the scalpers on eBay, and that was the best price I could pick it up for. But in saying that, because I'm only reviewing one game, and this has 17 games on it, we can't say that I paid that. We're going to have to say that I paid $7.40, meaning for me to get my $10 per hour money's worth, I'll need to complete this game and play it for longer than 45 minutes. And I can successfully say that I achieved this playing the game for 11 hours and 22 minutes. This means if you can convert to what I paid for the game, I actually ended up paying 65 cents per hour, which is a massive bargain. I had a play count of 9, a load count of a whopping 939, and a save count of 210. And just the load count and save count alone can show you how hard this game actually is. And now it's time for my review on Cannon Fodder. Let's do this. I give the story of Cannon Fodder a 7 out of 10. Because while it doesn't try to be some epic war saga, it's packed with fun, variety, and a cheeky sense of humour. The missions keep you guessing, and the gameplay mixes tactical smarts with slapstick chaos. And those permanent deaths, they give the whole thing surprising heart. Cannon Fodder is basically Worms meets Commandos in a pixelated playground where friendly fire is your worst enemy and every mission is a wild ride. So lock and load and get ready to lose a few soldiers, okay, a hell of a lot of soldiers, and enjoy the ridiculous explosive fun that only Cannon Fodder can deliver. First off, the game itself, you're diving into 42 missions split across 3 different phases, and each phase can crank up the difficulty like turning your morning coffee into a triple espresso. You'll rescue hostages, sneak through enemy bases, blast tanks, and even pilot helicopters. Yes, little pixel dudes flying helicopters like it's no big deal. It's like a Saturday morning cartoon session with an arcade joystick and way too much caffeine. And here's the kicker. The missions never feel like a copy, paste, and repeat kind of thing. One moment you're cautiously rescuing hostages, and next you're roaring through a battlefield in a tank. Then suddenly you're fumbling around in a helicopter trying not to crash. It's chaotic, it's wild, and it will keep you on the edge of your toes. What's really cool about the game is your pixel troops actually rank up as they survive the different missions. They start as fresh-faced recruits and graduate into battle-hardened veterans. Basically from clueless rookies to tiny, deadly war machines. It's like watching your team grow up, except instead of prom, they get grenades and rocket launchers. But wait, there's a dark side to Cannon Fodder. It's not all about laughs and explosions. Death is permanent here. And when one of your little guys go down, they don't respawn. Nope, instead you get tiny little gravestones on your base's hill. A pixelated war memorial of all the heroes that didn't make it. And let me tell you, there's something strangely emotional about staring at the graveyard after a mission. Looking at all your fallen comrades, and here lies Dave who mistook a grenade for a snack. Suddenly this goofy little game hits with a bittersweet punch.
You're my boy, Blue! You're my boy.
Let's take a look at the sound. I'd give the sound of Cannon Fodder also a solid 7 out of 10, mostly because the background music is so catchy. It's basically a tiny pixelated earworm that sets up camp in your brain and refuses to leave. Seriously, that boppy little tune sneaks into your head like a hyperactive squirrel on espresso, and you'll find yourself humming it in the shower, at the grocery store, or even when you're trying to sleep. Good luck with that. But here's the real star of the show, the sound effects. Those pew-pew rifle blasts, explosions, and the frenetic squeaks of your tiny soldiers running around add so much character to the game. They make the whole game feel a little less scary and a little bit more fun and light-hearted, where everyone's just a little bit crazy. And then there's those poor soldiers who don't quite make it. They don't just fall quietly, oh no, they keep bleeding out like they're in some dramatic pixel soap opera. Honestly, you half expect one of them to flop over and shout, "Guys, call an ambulance, or maybe just hand me a band-aid, or maybe a coffee." You can almost hear them thinking, "I'm not dead yet, just give me a minute. Actually, scratch that, maybe send a medic, or better yet, just send reinforcements to avenge me." The whole thing turns your battlefield into a chaotic mix of action and accidental slapstick. And in the end, you end up shooting him. You put him out of his misery. So yeah, the sound design perfectly captures the game's weird, wild, and wonderfully wacky vibe. It's a big part of why Cannon Fodder still feels so alive and so much fun decades later. Let's take a look at the gameplay. I'm giving the gameplay of Cannon Fodder a solid 8 out of 10, and here's why. It's so simple, it almost feels like you're babysitting a bunch of pixelated toddlers armed with guns, but somehow it's also so incredibly engaging and downright addictive. The premise is straightforward: control your tiny squad, blow up bad guys, rescue hostages, and try not to accidentally blow your own guys up in the process. Easy, right? Well, not quite. There's some sneaky strategy buried under all of those explosions. One of the best bits is how you can split up your group. Send one brave soldier, or foolish soldier, whichever way you want to look at it, to hit switches, trip mines, or distract the enemy, while the rest cover him like an overprotective pixelated babysitter squad. Timing is everything, especially in later missions, where you need to have each guy just in the right spot at just the right moment. It's like orchestrating a tiny military dance, except instead of ballet slippers, everyone's wearing combat boots and carrying rocket launchers. The game's gradual learning curve is smooth as butter on warm toast. You start off feeling like a total newbie, fumbling your way through the first few missions, accidentally tossing grenades at your own team, and wondering why your soldiers keep walking into mines like it's a surprise party. But then, as you progress, you start to get the hang of it. Suddenly, you're like this pixelated version of a tactical genius, coordinating your squad like a pro. You're splitting up the group, setting up ambushes, and basically making those little guys into tiny army of unstoppable badasses. It's like watching a slow-motion training montage, except with more explosions and way less inspirational music. What really makes Cannon Fodder stand out to me is how it balances frantic shootouts with tactical thinking. You're not just mindlessly running and gunning. You're plotting, timing, and sometimes screaming at your screen because one of your soldiers decided to moonwalk right into enemy fire. Absolute classic. The gameplay is addictive because every mission feels like a little puzzle wrapped in chaos, and you know you're going to die a lot. But figuring out how to beat that particular level without losing your whole squad, that's the sweet reward. Plus, the tiny soldiers' squeaky voices and goofy animations make it hard not to get mad when disaster strikes. Overall, I'm giving Cannon Fodder a solid 7 out of 10, and honestly, that feels just about right for this wild little pixelated war zone. The game is just so addictive, it's like a bag of your favorite chips, and you think you'll just have one mission, but before you know it, you're 5 hours deep and your tiny soldiers are gloriously marching into pixelated chaos, and you've lost count of how many times you've accidentally blown up your team. It's fun, it's frantic, and it never takes itself too seriously, which is exactly what makes makes it such a blast. Sure, it's not the deepest tactical sim in the world, and the graphics are a bit retro pixelated, but Cannon Fodder has a charm all of its own. Between the boppy tunes, the goofy soldier squeaks, and the surprisingly clever mission designs, it's like a little arcade war game that keeps on giving. Whether you're sneaking through enemy lines, driving tanks, or just trying to keep your tiny squad alive for 5 seconds longer, Cannon Fodder hits that sweet spot between silly and strategic. And that's what makes it stick around in your gaming brain long after you put down the controller. So yeah, a 7 out of 10, because sometimes simple fun and addictive gameplay beat out fancy graphics and mega deep stories, and Cannon Fodder, it's a tiny explosive of arcade joy that is definitely worth your time. And one thing I've got to shout out is how smooth Cannon Fodder runs on the Evercade. This game was originally from the early 90s, but playing it now feels like butter. No lag, no hiccups, just silky smooth pixel blasting action. Everything loads fast and the controls are tight, and the whole experience feels crisp and responsive, like the game was made yesterday instead of decades ago. It's a real treat to see a classic game like this get a clean, polished ride on modern hardware. No fumbling or frustration, just pure, seamless fun. Seriously, if you can hunt down this Legacy Card of Codemasters Collection 1, get it. And the main reason for that is this game here, Cannon Fodder. I absolutely had a blast. It kept me on the edge of my toes, and as you can see by my save and load state, it took me a hell of a long time to get through it. Thank you so much for watching another deep dive Evercade completion review. Please remember to give me a like, subscribe, and comment down below, because I love reading all your comments, especially if you played or completed Cannon Fodder in the past. As always, stay odd, stay awesome, and we'll see you next time on the Odd Socks. See you later, guys. Bye.
You